Welcome to Talent Hub Talk. I am Ben Duncombe, and this is a place where prominent and inspirational figures from both the local ANZ and global Salesforce Ohana share their stories. Welcome back to Talent Hub Talk. Today it's myself, me only, and I'm going to be doing part 2 of annual ANZ Salesforce Market Survey review. And this week I'll be focusing on the client side, so the data that we've received from hiring managers, whereas last week I focused on the candidate side and the data we'd received and gathered from Salesforce specialists in ANZ. This week we'll be looking more into like hiring decisions, trends that we're seeing in the hiring space, and paint a picture on the feel of the market from a hiring manager's perspective. And hopefully you enjoyed last week's episode. If you haven't caught that one yet, you can find that in all of the regular places. There's some really interesting insight that we gathered from that survey, and this one I'm going to delve into. So the first piece of exciting information, I guess, if you're looking at this from a Salesforce specialist, a Salesforce candidate standpoint, is that 81% of Salesforce managers in ANZ find it difficult to hire Salesforce talent, which is actually up from 76% of managers that stated that last year, which is really interesting because if you look at the news and if you read about the layoffs and the number of people that have been made redundant, you would expect that hiring managers would be finding it easier this year than last year to find and attract Salesforce talent, but that isn't the case. Obviously, bearing in mind that this data was collected in February, but I don't think it would have changed too much since then. I think on the whole, it still is really difficult to fill a Salesforce role. We are seeing Salesforce managers having a bit more of a wish list from what they're expecting from talent, and that might be why they're finding it harder than last year, where perhaps they were a bit more flexible with their requirements. But yeah, that's definitely an interesting stat to get this off and running with. Hiring managers across consulting and end user companies agree that their biggest challenge this year is the lack of suitable candidates in the market, with 28% of end user managers also highlighting salary expectations being a major challenge for them. So yeah, lack of suitable candidates in the market. And we'll get on to a bit later, like what that means, what is a suitable candidate. But yeah, it's really interesting to hear that that's really the biggest challenge that people are expecting this year. When considering on the survey, there were other options around, market conditions, like global economy, local economy, things like that. So they haven't been pinpointed by managers as being the biggest challenge, but actually finding relevant and suitable candidates is the biggest challenge. And similarly to last year, Salesforce developers and functional consultants have been listed as some of the most difficult roles to fill by end customers, whereas consulting practices are finding the solution architect skill set the most difficult to attract. Like I said in the candidate survey podcast last week, pretty much every role is hard to fill still in the Salesforce ecosystem. People would say that, would expect maybe the Salesforce admin role to be the easiest to fill. That's probably where most people transition into the ecosystem if they're coming in from a non-Salesforce background. But yeah, really, really difficult to fill any Salesforce role right now. And whether that's down to people not wanting to move as much as they were over the last couple of years, or just the lack of experienced talent in the market, it's hard whichever way you look at it. 36% of managers have seen a role being unfilled for over 3 months. Last year, only 6% of managers said that they'd seen a role being unfilled for over 3 months. So yeah, that's a major increase of people that have seen roles being open for a long period of time. And it's definitely not unnormal to see this happen, especially for some more technical roles, more senior roles, that we definitely do see companies struggling to find the right person for quite a lengthy period of time, in some cases, obviously. 81% of managers expect to add to their Salesforce team in the next 12 months, which rises to 97% of consulting managers expect to hire, although only 14% expect to hire over 20 new team members this year, which is down from 58% last year. So 58% of managers last year in the consulting space expected to add 20 or more team members, which, is obviously massive growth. We're not seeing as many expecting to see that number of new headcount members in their team, but it's still great to see that 81% of managers expect to add to their headcount across the ecosystem. When making hiring decisions, consulting managers stated attitude is the most important factor, whereas end user managers said culture fit. And it was really interesting to see that across the board, managers said that relevant industry or domain experience was the least important factor. It's interesting because obviously Salesforce are pushing Salesforce Industries. They're building domain or industry specific solutions for businesses. So I do think there is value in domain and industry experience. So I'm quite surprised that was actually the least important factor. And I think it's more important in certain industries, like historically banking clients have wanted people from a banking or finance background. So maybe that's still the case. I'm not sure. But yeah, it's interesting to see that was the least important factor. Unfortunately for newbies in the Salesforce market, 44% of end user managers said that they do not hire people without prior Salesforce experience. And 64% of consulting managers said that less than 10% of their new hires come with no previous Salesforce experience. Yeah, I'd love to see more managers hiring people from a non-Salesforce background. Unfortunately, the numbers aren't great for people that are looking to transition. There are opportunities out there for people to gain Salesforce experience, but just not enough, not as many as we would like to see. 76% of end user managers have to pay more to attract Salesforce professionals when compared to other similar skill sets. And 71% of consulting managers state that Salesforce salaries are not value for money when compared to other skill sets. Again, another interesting stat. We have kind of seen salaries cool off a little bit, not go backwards at all by any means, but maybe not continue growing at the pace they were in 2020 and 2021. I do think that on the whole, tech salaries are quite high across the board. So yeah, it's interesting to see that managers do have to pay more for Salesforce professionals still when compared to other skill sets. 64% of Salesforce managers said that less than 25% of job applicants typically match their requirement. And 43% of managers also commented that they made a bad hire or a hire that proved to be a bad fit for their business within the last 2 years. We are definitely seeing an increase in job applicants, but from my experience, not many of the applicants that are applying for a role and the findings show that less than 25% are actually right for the role. So if ever you are looking at an advert on LinkedIn and you see that 100 people have already applied for the role, going off of this, you could probably presume that less than 25 of those 100 candidates are actually suitable for the position. So that's just something to bear in mind if you're ever hesitant to apply for a role because of the amount of applicants they already have. 98% of hiring managers have a preference for some form of remote working, with only 2% wanting their team members to be in the office 5 days a week. Yeah, that definitely makes sense to me. I think if you are in that 2%, you need to really assess that and work out why you need someone in the office 5 days a week now in this current climate. Obviously, some industries are different, but on the whole, Salesforce professionals can do a lot of their work remotely, in some cases fully remotely. So I really don't think people should be expecting staff to come in 5 days a week now. And if you are, then you're definitely going to miss out on a lot of talent that just won't do that. 41% of end user managers expect to add products to their Salesforce suite this year, which is slightly down from 56% last year. So that might mean less projects this year than last year, less enhancements of Salesforce environments, but still a good number. 41% of end user managers looking to add products. That's still some decent growth in terms of applications out there and products being used. So yeah, that will create opportunity for sure. 52% of hiring managers feel that Salesforce talent pool in their area is quality short, whereas only 12% said candidate short. I definitely agree with this. I think if we look back to when I first started recruiting in the Salesforce ecosystem 8 or 9 years ago now, I would have said the market was candidate short. You had very few potential candidates per job, whereas now there are definitely more candidates than there were before applying for jobs, looking for Salesforce jobs. But the quality of the overall talent pool is still lacking in some areas. So, there are areas where we definitely need more experience, more quality practices, more quality resources, more training, more development. And the final one, 4% of end user managers are considering moving their company off of the Salesforce platform. 4% obviously isn't a considerable considerable amount of people or companies, but yeah, it's a shame to see companies are considering that. One factor could be salaries. Obviously, the cost of Salesforce compared to other platforms is often an angle that's pushed by other technology platforms. But 64% of Salesforce end user companies feel they are achieving a positive return on their Salesforce investment, which is great to see. 64% of companies are getting value from the Salesforce platform and more value than the cost that they're paying. So yeah, that's really great to see. So overall, it seems like there will be some strong hiring activity this year. I think the market is, definitely, ANZ market is definitely short of high quality resources still. A good place to be if you are an experienced, high-quality Salesforce professional. If you've got any questions on this survey, I would love to answer them, as always. If you've got any points you'd like to make, or if you'd like to reach out for a discussion, I'm always keen to hear from you. And hopefully you've enjoyed the analysis of the survey. Hopefully you enjoy reading the survey each year as well. There's lots of points that I haven't covered, so if you haven't read it already, I definitely recommend taking a look, and would love to hear any feedback you have. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed the chat, and if you did, please make sure you have subscribed for future episodes that are coming through. I would also be very grateful if you would consider leaving a review on your chosen podcast platform, as 5-star reviews will help us to reach more trailblazers from across the world. I look forward to sharing another episode with you soon, and thanks again.